Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to the Reinvent Your Reality Podcast. My name is Jen, and I'm so happy you could join me here today. Welcome to episode 6 of this podcast. We are on a roll here with the weekly podcasts, and I'm really happy you could join me today and talk about all things creating reality, living from your most authentic place, self-acceptance, spirituality. We talk about it all here on this podcast. So today is going to be a juicy one. Maybe. Juicy. I think it's juicy. But it's something that I talk about. We all talk about. It's about the ego, the ego, not to be confused with ego. That was a really dumb joke, by the way. And versus the real you. So the illusionary self, aka the ego, versus the real self, and how to tell the difference between the two. So getting to know yourself is almost like playing a game of strip poker in the middle of winter, in the dead of winter. Yes, it is. Because ourselves, we have layers to ourselves, okay? There's layers to authenticity. A lot of people say, well, I'm being me, I'm being true to myself, I'm being completely honest, but it's another layer. So of course you have the superficial layer on the top, and that's the easy one. That's like society, is like social media. It's like you know whether you're being fake, okay? But as you keep taking layers off, it gets harder and harder and harder. Definitely gets more difficult. Why? Because you're more exposed to the cold. You're more vulnerable. And you're getting to those deeper parts of yourself that sometimes it takes years to unravel. So, one of the ways you can tell the difference between the ego self versus the authentic self is the ego self usually likes to be built up, needs to be built up, while our true self, our authentic self, who we are at the core, needs to be unraveled, needs to be stripped down a lot of times to get to who we really are. I did a video a while ago on are you being authentic? And I used the example of the little Russian dolls. I always thought those things are so cute. It's like you open one up and there's another one. You open another one and there's another one. And just when you think you get to the core, no, there's another little baby doll in there. And then maybe another little baby doll. And you're like, oh my God, that's so cute. How could I not know that there was another little baby doll inside of me? And that's kind of what we are. We're like, we make ourselves so small a lot of times, our true selves. We don't let ourselves be heard by ourselves. We don't trust ourselves. We don't surrender to life. We put a mask on and we go about our life and we think that we're being true. But years later, something comes up and we're like, shit. All these years I thought I was doing me, but I wasn't doing me. Not to be egotistical, but all right. So, a lot of times we live life through the eyes of other people. We think we're living for ourselves, but we're actually living as an identity through somebody else's judgment. How we think somebody else views us, therefore we take on that identity. We say, well, this person thinks I'm good at this, or I've always done things this way, so what will people think if I just switch, if I just change who I am? Well, here's a newsflash. The identity that you take on is not real. Hence the name Illusionary Self. Imagine that. But it seems so real. How could it not be real if it seems so real? Because your brain is a very, very smart computer and it can really play tricks on you. So everything on the outside, everything you see in your reality, Your mind is producing it. It's based on your internal reaction to something. How you project the movie in front of you. Because there's nothing actually outside of you. And I'll talk about this a lot. A lot of people will talk about it in the spiritual community, how we're not separate. It's the ego that tells us that we're separate. It gives us this sense of self. So throughout life, we identify or we fit into certain roles. We say, I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, I'm a student, I'm a housewife, I'm this, I'm that, I'm female, I'm male, I'm black, I'm white. But these identities are attached to the ego self. At our core, we are all the same. So I guess you could say that real, true authenticity is something intangible, kind of our spirit or our soul. But as human beings, we have the spiritual, but we also have the human body. We have the physical. And the two come together and manifest into this life, this experience we're having on earth. So you can't say that you are one or the other. Yes, we are all divine, infinite human beings. That's the real you, okay? The real you is limitless. The real you is infinite. But it's hard for us to experience life here on earth as a human being thinking that. So we have to get as close as we can to that non-physical and still be physical, if that makes sense. So there's a really, really good book that I wanted to mention, and it's called My Next Husband Will Be a Lesbian, and it's stories collected and written by Pasha Marlowe. And I bring this book up because, first of all, I read it in a day. I thought it was awesome. Such a good book. I'm glad I saw it on social media. One of my friends contributed to it with one of her stories. And it's about these women who, many of them in their 50s, married with kids, thought they were living the dream, living the life. And they never got to know themselves fully. And it wasn't until later in life that they discovered who they really were, or they knew, they kind of had an inkling who they were, but they kind of stuffed it down, buried it down, because that's what we do, because of societal conditioning, family conditioning by anything on the outside. We are scared to face who we really are. And especially if growing up, we were taught that that's not normal. It's not normal to be a lesbian. It's not normal to be bisexual. It's not normal to be transsexual. It's not normal to be of this color or that race. Racism, homophobia, prejudice. We know it. It's alive and well. It's been alive and well all throughout history. And it's like, why can't we wake up and just accept everybody? Because some people are, I don't want to say farther along than others, because that makes it sound like I'm greater than you, or this is the issue. This is the problem with being human many times. And this is the problem with the ego. Not that it's a problem, but it's an issue that comes up all the time. We can't get rid of the ego. We have to learn to accept the ego, but manage it, control it, not let it rule our life. So the ego says, I'm separate. I am this, that, and whatever. This sense of self, right? So mix that with past programming, with conditioning from society, there's almost like a hierarchy of humans that say, okay, these are the norms. This is how things must go. These are the rules. These are the laws. You must abide. Religion does this a lot. They say, okay, they play God. They play God pretty much. But they say it's through the eyes of God. God says this, God says that. God, universe, source, whatever you want to call him or her, it, whatever label that you as a human put on it, which is your ego putting a label on something, is still this separation, still a separation. Because at our core, at the root, we're all one. We can't understand it. Even master spiritual gurus who spend years and years meditating up on a mountain still have difficulty, or it takes them years to accept such a simple concept, right? You could sum it up in one sentence and we still won't get it. Why? Because as long as we're living, we have an ego and we can't just toss it out. We can't let go of it. So we have to learn to live life in a way where we don't let it rule our life and kind of manage it. Don't let it get out of control. Always in the back of your head, remember who you are. Respond with human kindness and love instead of hatred and anger and things that divide and separate, reacting to things. So back to the book, My Next Husband Will Be a Lesbian. These women come out later in life as whoever they identify with, or they feel the need to identify. So that's kind of an issue too, I feel like, where we can't just be who we are. We have to fit ourselves into a box somewhere. We have to fit ourselves into a box. So even if you are yourself, you still feel like you need to fit yourself into a box, into a label, because it is our conditioning. And if we don't, then we're a weirdo. We're psycho. Nobody will love us. Again, limitation. So I'm just saying, to be aware, to know who you are. Here's a hint. Who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when nobody is watching? What do you do? How do you act? What kind of stuff are you into? Now ask yourself, who are you when people are watching? Who are you on the outside? Who are you showing yourself to be? Match those two together. How mismatched are you? How accurate are you? How close are you? Because we take on different personalities depending who we're with, what kind of role we're playing. Our life is like a movie. We're playing a character every day in a movie. We're playing many characters in many movies. So when we say that we can't change, or we can't identify in a different way, or we can't take on a new career, or we can't date a new type of person or gender even, or we can't do this or can't do that. Cultural conditioning. We're scared. It's the fear that others are going to see us, not how they've always seen us. It's more comfortable to know that, well, this person sees me as shy, so how could I be confident? I feel like I'd be fake. Well, you're not going to be fake if you truly act confident. Like, that's just who you are. Or vice versa. Just something to be aware of. Anyway. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate you so much. I put out weekly podcasts here, so if you like this podcast, make sure you share it with your friends. Give me a little support below. I have a YouTube channel as well, Jen Palko on YouTube. The link is in my bio here below. My new book is out as well, 12-Step Guide for the Self-Help Book Addict. It's on Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can find the link below in my bio. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate the support so much. And I will talk to you on the next podcast. So peace.